Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and once again, we are on location for a special edition of In the Weeds, this time at the New England Cannabis Convention. You know, it's their 10th year, and I've been here for 6 out of those 10, let's just say. That being said, you never know who you're going to run into. Well, I ran into Alex Archuleta. He's with AZUCA, and if you don't know who or what AZUCA is, Alex is here to tell us a little bit about this product, which is a really interesting product.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jimmy. Proud to be here. It's a beautiful day in Boston today, and
It's freezing outside.
you know, still beautiful nonetheless. Cold therapy, right? So AZUCA is a science-forward, chef-created encapsulation process. And what we're doing is we are encapsulating individual cannabinoid molecules with a water-friendly jacket. And what that allows for is it allows for soft tissue absorption through the mouth, the esophagus, and on its way to the gut, preempting the liver before your body can convert that delta-9 THC to 11-hydroxy. So it is truly a smoker's high in an edible product.
And all those words, and it's times. It's basically it cuts down on the time for effectiveness, right?
That's correct.
Time, what is it? Time infusion or something like that?
Time infusion is the name of our technology. That is correct. TIME is an acronym. It stands for Thermodynamic Individual Molecular Encapsulation. But in layman's terms, we are adding predictability one molecule at a time.
You know, I never did science, okay? But I've certainly learned quite a bit over the last 6 years talking to the scientists, the researchers in this, and having a quick-acting product that isn't, edibles can be dangerous because you never know when the heck it's going to kick in, right? In this particular case, it kicks in pretty fast, right?
It does. It does. We're bringing predictability to the market, and really that's what we're trying to change. We're trying to change the stigma for edibles because, I mean, everyone has that age-old horror story, or at least knows someone who does, right? Popped an edible, didn't kick in time, popped another one, you're in space for 10 hours, sucking your thumb underneath the bed or what have you, right? So we're really just trying to make things safer, more predictable, and really for our partners, we want to make them create products that are going to stand the test of time.
And I think it's interesting. You've got time in there as one of the things that you guys do, and these products that are out there now that are basically, is it a water soluble product? Does it work in like drinks? Does it work in, or is it just an edible?
We can tackle form factors of any kind, really. So in the chocolate space, in the beverage space, gummies, of course, are king, baked goods, whatever you want, we can do it.
Sounds like he's a sales guy, doesn't it? He's director of business development for AZUCA, let's just say. Alex, what's different? We've got into a lot of the differentiation of your product. What's the biggest challenge out there? You mentioned stigma. Everybody has these stories. How are you still finding, even though, certainly over the last 4 or 5 years, we've made a lot of progress. Now, half the population of America that's over 21 has access to legal cannabis. But we're still fighting the road to normalization. There still is that stigma that everyone has to kind of accept. What are some of the things that you think AZUCA could do to help with that cause? Because that, to me, is going to be a lot more important than legalization. It needs normalization. It's a pretty loaded question, I know, so you have to think about it.
It is, but I truly believe that we can, with new consumers specifically,
we educate them.
Our technology allows for an easier entry point. So let's just say a man in their 50s who has never smoked in their entire life, they're not going to take up smoking in their 50s, right? If they want to experiment with cannabis, they can do so. And our technology allows for a much easier entry point where traditional edibles don't allow for that.
Right. And I think that's really interesting you bring that up. So I guess my next question is going to be, you said it's delta-9 THC. As you know, there's a movement now to ban delta-8 from the marketplace. That's not going to impact you guys at all because you're within the delta-9 space, right?
It does not impact us, no. And so there's a difference between a Delta 9 THC in the hemp space and then a Delta 9 THC effect in the cannabis space. And what we're really doing is we're allowing for that Delta 9 THC effect to remain in edibles because traditional edibles will convert that Delta 9 to 11 hydroxy, and couch lock is not all that popular. But there is still a time and a place for traditional edibles, of course, but we want to make it so that it's more of a socially consumable high. And with consumption lounges now being written into state laws, this is going to be a perfect product for that. Perfect.
Except in Massachusetts, because they wrote it in the state law 6 years ago, and we're still waiting for the first legal one to open. That's one of the most frustrating things in this state, that we can't get it done. But there are plenty of other states, like Missouri, for instance, they're open consumption. They're welcoming everything to this. In a lot of ways, that makes being in business in this industry even more challenging, doesn't it? Every state has different rules.
State-by-state regulations is definitely a challenge. One that shout out to my CEO, Kim Sanchez-Real. She's wonderful. She is really the brain behind the scalability of our process, and our product being an uninfused precursor allows for us to be able to ship that anywhere.
So where can people get it? Tell me how they find out more about AZUCA, and more importantly, make that decision to buy it and try it out.
You know what? Our team is great. You can email partnerships@azucatime.com. Again, partnerships@azucatime.com. And we're happy to meet with you, happy to dive into the details of our technology.
He's Alex Archuleta. He's the Director of Business Development for AZUCA. I'm Jimmy Young from In the Weeds with Pro Cannabis Media, and we're going to have more from this special on the floor from NECANN after this.
Some of the largest companies, as you mentioned, Tilton Weed Maps, Harborside, Green Solutions, Medicine Man, many of them have had successful exits. We've made good money in the industry. We want to now give back. We want to now help the small guy or gal that has an idea but doesn't have the friends and family, doesn't have the connections, doesn't have their own equity to contribute. We want to help those guys get into the industry, be able to, realize their dreams, be able to do something in addition to what it is they're currently doing now. This doesn't interfere with that. It's not an exclusive. And what we want to do is we want to help birth some new entrepreneurs, because you need capital to be able to do that.
What if we're right? What if all of a sudden they discovered that there is medical use for marijuana and that it is good for you, and it's better than alcohol, and it's better than opioids, and it helps your health? What if we're right? What if they find that out?
Specific cannabinoids have medical value. These are facts.
I'm here today in hopes to assist in removing the demonized stigma of cannabis and the perception that cannabis is just about getting high. The true base of this plant has to be known.
I don't think anybody should ever go to jail for cannabis. Get some medicine, and everybody should have access to it.
This is something which, at the very, very least, is the key to alleviating suffering and extending life for millions of human beings. Right? For returning some kind of balance to our society, and quite possibly of restoring our planet's natural balance as well.
In the Weeds from NECANN continues here from the floor. I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young, and I'm so happy to be joined by a guy that I've known in the cannabis space for, well, let's not say a long time, but let's say few years. How's that? Is that fair enough? Scott Jordan is here with Alternative Financial Network. How do you do?
Close. It's Finance Network, not financial, but you're getting there. You got 2 out of 3, Jimmy.
Anything having to do with that?
66%. Okay.
That gets me in the Hall of Fame. That gets me. That's all I care about. Scott, tell me about, you and I have talked a little bit off the camera, if you will, and there's some exciting things happening with your group.
Yes.
So I want to know, what are you working on now? And bring us up to date with what's the latest from your group.
We're working on helping startups and companies that need relatively small amounts of money, meaning $500,000 or less. And what we're doing is we've got a funding source that's not basing it on your business plan, on your acumen, it's not a venture, it's debt, but it's based on a credit score and 2 years of tax returns with income. And with that, we can get you money.
That's great. Both those things, like, okay, haven't done that. Okay, haven't done that. So that takes me out of the equation, which is fine. It's all good. How do you help them when they have a history of bad credit or no revenue even? Well,
it's difficult if they have bad credit. They need to get a cosigner, okay? Or we actually are implementing a multi-step process, a multi-part program to help them have a capital raising plan. Most of the time companies, unless they're sophisticated, don't have a capital raising plan. This is more for smaller companies, mom and pops, and other companies, 20 employees and under. We're going to help them, number one, fix up their business, fix up their personal credit, establish business credit, help them with crowdfunding, because we think that crowdfunding is a very viable option now that there's certain companies that are in it. And then go back to friends and family looking for capital after they've already proven themselves, after they have revenue, after they're semi-established, so that it's not an uncomfortable situation with mom and dad on holidays.
Lowering the risk, and God love families and friends. Okay. Yes. What differentiates what you guys do from what other groups that are looking to help people get started in this industry?
Most of the time they're evaluating the business plan, the market, how they felt about something, how other investments have worked out for them. This is purely based on your credit score, your personal income, and it's unsecured so that you're not having to mortgage the house to be able to do that. And it works nicely for any type of cannabis business. Whether it's plant touching or not, doesn't really matter. Do you have a 680 credit score? Do you have 2 years of taxable income of $50,000 or more? Come apply. Let's see what we can get for you.
Now, there's a lot of big companies in this space. Tilt, Weed Maps, just to name a two right off the top here, and pick any MSO. What is it that got you away from the big boys and into kind of working with a lot of more smaller groups?
I'm glad that you asked that question, Jimmy.
I'm glad I asked it too, Scott.
We've helped some of the largest companies, as you mentioned, Tilt and Weed Maps, Harborside, Green Solutions, Medicine Man. Many of them have had successful exits. We've made good money in the industry. We want to now give back. We want to now help the small guy or gal that has an idea but doesn't have the friends and family, doesn't have the connections, doesn't have their own equity to contribute. We want to help those guys get into the industry, be able to, realize their dreams, be able to do something in addition to what it is they're currently doing now. This doesn't interfere with that. It's not an exclusive. And what we want to do is we want to help birth some new entrepreneurs, because you need capital to be able to do that. We feel like the social equity licenses are a first start, but if you don't give that person cash or credit or money, it's like giving someone a Ferrari with no gas in it. You can't get any place.
You need a little help from the organization that's believing in your dream or your goal and that sort of thing. What is your goal?
Yeah, my goal is to, at each one of these shows, to have a session to be able to help 10 entrepreneurs raise $100,000 or more and put $1 million in capital into that city or state. We feel like that would be a worthy goal. That would be something that would really juice us up. It's great to make money in the industry, but it's also great to help people, and we're all about helping people figure out how to use the resources they have more resourcefully. That's really what this comes down to. And this technique we used back in 13 and 14 when the industry was first starting. I used it myself to raise $275,000 for my business. So I know it works. We're now dusting off the playbook for 2024.
I love those sports analogies. He knows that about me. So how do people find you, Scott Jordan?
Probably the best way is go to my website, which is www.alternativefinancenetwork.com, alternativefinancenetwork.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn, although I do get a lot of inquiries there. We'd love to see what we can do to help you get the capital that you need. It's an expensive business to get into. There are unknown things. You need to have somebody else's piggy bank if yours is not big enough to accommodate what you need.
There you go. He's Scott Jordan. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media, and we'll continue with our NECANN special after this. It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weejits filtration system. What? The Weejits.com, Weejits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, add in the code of PCM TV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weejits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the special edition of In the Weeds on the floor at the New England Cannabis Convention. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of PCM, and I'm joined by Omar Sacirbey, who is now the editor of MJ Biz Daily. How did that happen, Omar? And congratulations.
I don't know. Well, thank you first off for the congratulations.
Congratulations.
I got very lucky. My editor put me there. I hope I can represent the company well.
Well, it's a great company, and it's probably the most well-recognized daily beat of cannabis out there. I will say I read it every day, whenever I can, and usually it's every day. So let's talk about the state, if you will, not of Massachusetts, not of New England, but what the heck is going on in our country right now with federal reform. To me, as an outsider looking in, it is one of the most frustrating times of my lifetime, because of the division that we have, the bipartisan division that we have in our Congress, and we really need them to prioritize cannabis as opposed to piggybacking it onto all these other bills. Yeah. And sure enough, that came out after the roundtable last week, which we'll talk about as well. Sure. But how do you think reform is going to happen? Are you confident that the DEA is going to do something, whether it's just Schedule 3 or a deschedule?
Yeah, I'm not that confident that the DEA is going to do something. I think it's possible. I don't want to be doom and gloom and say that they're not going to do it, but I feel like this is something that's been out there for a long time. It's been discussed for years and in even decades, really. So it's not like something new that needs to be thought about, some big deep thoughts on. So I'm a little worried that the DEA is taking so long on this. I'm wondering sometimes. I ask myself if they're finding a way to get out of doing the right thing.
Interesting. And yeah, shirking their responsibility is what you just said, which is more frustrating than anything.
Yeah, no, it is. I think that's a good way to put it. Shirking their responsibility. It's really evident how successful the cannabis markets, the legal cannabis markets, have been in the U.S. despite being under, despite having really terrible regulations to deal with, having the stigma to deal with, regulators who are making draconian rules that undermine the industry. Yet, the industry succeeds. Patients have access to cannabis, which is the most important thing, and people see the impact that has for individual patients, for communities. Cannabis businesses help communities; they bring revenue in. I think cannabis is a wellness drug. It's not, just a recreational drug or a medical drug. It's a wellness. It's a wellness tool.
I hate the word drug. And I hate recreational.
Yeah.
It's a plant medicine.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always used it.
Yeah.
And that way I don't abuse it because I do use it in microdoses.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can have multiple microdoses that get really high. I just want to tell people that because they judge you. A lot of people in the community judge you on, well, don't you wake up and bake? And I go, no, I did that when I was 20 years old, Here's the thing about our federal government. And it came out of the roundtable discussion that Kamala Harris had last week, and Chris Goldstein from NORML was there, and I have an interview with him, and we're playing that up in our news this week. And he said a great thing about the fact, hey, we've been trying to get into the White House for decades. This is the first White House where you actually heard the president mention the word. I think he mentioned marijuana in his State of the Union address, and Kamala flat out said, cannabis needs to be legalized.
Yeah.
That it happened in my lifetime. Right. I was going to say that it happened in my lifetime and yours too. Yeah. It is a watershed moment.
Yeah. No, it's good. I think it's progress, but we still need to see more, right? I think it's I ask myself, do they really get it? I think they're saying the right things, but again, it seems to me like it shouldn't be as difficult as it's been, made to be. Is the problem in Congress and the Senate? I think that is a big obstacle to deal with. But the cannabis industry, I think we have momentum now, and I think we need to continue, or not continue, but we need to sort of put on this full court press, if you will, on the state level, at the federal level, and all terms, and say, what are you guys doing? Get off your butts and do the right thing.
So we've already talked about the DEA that's shirking their responsibility. Now we're pretty much saying Congress is shirking their responsibility. Nobody in our elected officials group, or even the, really wants it to survive. I really believe that. I don't want to say it's an active government conspiracy, but our government is doing everything they possibly can at the federal level, at the state level, at the city and town level to make it as difficult as possible to be in business in cannabis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is exactly right. They make it hard to be in business, both at the state level and at the federal and at the federal level. I mean, look at what's happening in Minnesota. On the one hand, they're trying to, and rightfully, trying to prioritize people with past cannabis transgressions, get them in line for licenses, sort of fast track them. But
that work out for New York?
But then what they're doing in Minnesota, there are cannabis businesses who are sort of in this category, fast track, but they're trying to sell cannabis now ahead of the and they're being punished, while other people who are doing the same thing, they just did it 5 years ago, are being fast tracked. So it's a contradictory policy, and you find things like that in every state.
Right. And if you look at the Massachusetts experiment, if you will, since 2016. I remember talking to Steve Hoffman when he was the head of the commission, and he says, we're starting from scratch. I mean, we're making it up as we go along and trying to do what's right. for everybody, as opposed to what I see in New York, what I see at other regulatory groups that are looking to make it as difficult as possible. And I'm like, what's the point? Why is it the stigma that's driving this? Is it the fact that they want a piece of the pie, Omar? What's driving that delay, if you will?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I wish I had an answer for that. I can't.
I'm not sure there is an answer, just for the record. But I just was looking for confirmation that I'm totally out of control.
No, you're right on.
What would you like to see, the thing in the industry that you think would be the easiest thing to change, but it hasn't been changed yet? Is it just regulating the Delta 8 hemp world, or is it banning Delta 8? Is it finally legalizing, which I don't think is going to happen in my lifetime, that being said, but can we get to at least decriminalization? If you look at history of all the states that have gone legal, the first thing they do is decriminalize it. Yeah. And they open it up to the medical patients. So there's some acceptance that this is truly has medicinal value, even though we know what Schedule 1 is and all this, and that, therein lies the rub with the DEA, is they have to make sure they get it right. What do you think is the easiest thing, low-hanging fruit? What would you like to see change as quickly as possible?
The thing that I would like to see change the most is 280E. Although I don't think it's a low-hanging fruit. It should be, but the IRS is in the way of that. But that said, there have been a couple of MSOs, TrueLeave and TerraSend, and maybe there are more, but they have applied for refunds and have gotten them.
TrueLeave too.
Yeah. It was TerraSend and TrueLeave, and to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, and that by itself is a game changer. The reason I bring 280E up is because people say that if rescheduling does happen, 280E will be history, and that by itself is going to be a game changer for I think pretty much any business. That's going to take them from being unprofitable to profitable. I think that's the biggest thing, because 280E is, I think, the one single most reason why cannabis businesses that are not profitable aren't profitable, because of that. And those that are profitable, they could be a lot more profitable if they didn't have to deal with 280E.
It actually creates a margin in an industry that really doesn't have one, or if it does, it's this big. And that's a game changer for the industry. I agree totally. And also, we would be remiss if we didn't say, I'd also like to see all past cannabis possessions expunged across the board, right?
Yes. Oh, 100%. All past, all past cannabis possessions. I think even low-level dealing, or non-violent, who knows? It depends on who you're dealing.
Easy, Omar. I don't think you're going to get that one passed. But at least, if we can at least take care of those who have got, a half a joint and they get 2 months 2 years probation, maybe 30 days in jail. I mean, for a half a gram of it's ridiculous. Well, look, Omar, I could sit here and talk to you forever because you understand the industry. I think I do. You do. And well, thank you. Did you hear that, by the way? I appreciate that. But I know that I also want to keep these things short and sweet. So one last question about your keynote address today. What was the flavor of it, and how do you think it went?
I think the flavor is, despite there being increasing challenges in the cannabis industry, there's still a lot of reason to be optimistic. The challenges, we know, the terrible regulations continue. The 280E, as we just discussed, continues. There's stigma. Then there's inflation. It's harder to be profitable as a cannabis business. But things are getting better. I think there's more, financing is going to be available for people, whether it be through lenders or investors. Although, careful what you want in terms of an investor. It'd be nice if you can bootstrap. But things are getting better in that regard. I think also there's going to be more opportunities for licensing. Right? We have, now we just have grows and retailers and edibles makers, what have you. But now we'll have, delivery licenses and event licenses and other types of licenses that people will be able to, basically generate profits in a positive, healthy way for this industry.
In an ancillary business way, which I think
Yes,
is really,
absolutely.
really and truly what is needed.
Yeah.
Omar, like I said, I could talk, and we didn't even talk about our favorite sport, okay, which is football.
Yes.
Okay, not to be confused with American football. Football is soccer in America, but everywhere else it's football. We'll get to that some other day. Omar Sacirbey from MJ Biz Daily. Good luck in your new role and your new hat.
Pleasure.
You
Good
know,
luck to you too.
good
Keep
to-
up the great work, Jimmy.
Thank you so much. That's Omar Sacirbey. I'm Jimmy Young from PCM. We'll have more from NECANN after this.
We're working on helping startups and companies that need relatively small amounts of money, meaning $500,000 or less. And what we're doing is we've got a funding source that's not basing it on your business plan, on your acumen, it's not a venture, it's debt, but it's based on a credit score and 2 years of tax returns with income. And with that, we can get you money.